Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. My name is Holly Ulbrich, and I am your worship associate today. The land on which we meet is the ancestral home of the Southern Iroquois and the Eastern Cherokee. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. We are so glad that you chose our fellowship as your place of worship this morning. Whatever your beliefs, whatever your politics, whatever your theology, we come together for worship in order to slow down and listen to the call of our hearts, our spirits. We come together for worship so that we can be reminded of our highest aspirations and continue to transform ourselves into our best selves. If you are joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. If you are a visitor and would like to stand and tell us who you are, you're welcome to do so. Anyone? No visitors? Just us folks? Okay. After the service, we gather for coffee and social connection in the social room. Please be sure to join us. If you are interested in getting a weekly newsletter so that you can get connected to our community, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local social justice work, please reach out to the office by email on our website. I have a few announcements. First one's very important to me, so listen carefully. Today is your last chance to fill out the Social Action Team survey. Let us know what you care about. The survey is on the table just outside the sanctuary door, and you can put your response into the wire basket right behind the surveys. This is the last Sunday. After this, you lose your opportunity to vote. And for those of you who lost the opportunity to vote in the primary, you know how significant that can be. Next Sunday, June 23rd, you're in for a special treat. During General Assembly each year, there's a Sunday worship service that is made available to everyone via live stream. It will be shown at the fellowship at 10:30 using the TV in the sanctuary in the social hall, as well as the YouTube live stream. Please note that the service will be a little longer than usual at approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. But the music and the sermon and just everything is really wonderful. And it's nice to share a service with, a lot of other UUs around the country and remind ourselves that we are not alone. Carol Ward is expecting to move to Clemson down soon. She has 2 cats dear to her that she would like to be adopted. If you are interested, contact Susan Hilligoss at gmail.com. Monday, June 17th, hula, hike, and swim. Join the hulas on a short hike, less than a mile total out and back, to Woodall Shoals Beach, a swimming hole with shade for picnics. Please see the weekly connection for details and let Sarah Summers Hoskin know if you're interested in attending so she can send updates and coordinate carpools. There's also other announcements of interest on the back of your bulletin.
Okay, so we got a couple of things backwards on the order of service and in the script that I did. So we have listed next the hymn, but I'm going to do the opening words next, if that's okay with everybody, because that's what I have in my script here. So these words are from Reverend Gretchen Haley. There is a time to let go the resistance, the steadfast march to complete the to-do list for parents and activists, for all who love this life, these people, these mountains, this sky. There is a time to rest and to trust the world will go on, filled with partners at the ready, all of us splitting shifts on the project of building and healing, tending and turning, breath and being, require their own practice, their own attention. And the heart needs time to become stronger. After the shattering, the opening wider, learning to love more, and again, come into this place, study stillness and joy, know your belovedness, like a memory calling out from the center of your being, connecting every little piece of everything to everyone and all of us. Feel the gratitude rising and praise for the chance to begin again this day with hope, with joy. Come, let us worship together. And with that spirit of worshiping together, you are invited to rise in spirit, body, or mind to join in singing number 118, This Little Light of Mine.
As Reverend Holly lights the chalice in the absence of small children, I invite you to join me in reciting our affirmation. We gather together in a spirit of love with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another.
See, this is why we call it Time for All Ages. Because even though there are no kids here, you guys can still get something out of this story. And this morning's story is a treasure that I came across when I was looking for a book to go with this morning's service. I had not known before that His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the Archbishop Desmond Tutu had in fact written a story together for children. So this morning we have The Little Book of Joy by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu, illustrated by Rafael Lopez. One of us grew up in a little house. One of us grew up in a big house. Our houses were on opposite sides of the world. Often we were sad and lonely. Both of us wished for a friend. Sometimes the other kids wouldn't let us play, or they were very far away. We wondered if we would always be sad and lonely. But when we sat still and breathed in the quiet, we noticed something beautiful. If you just focus on the thing that is making you sad, then the sadness is all you see. But if you look around, you will see that joy is everywhere. Joy is the warm, tingly feeling of the sun tickling your toes in the morning. It's the giggly, squiggly feeling when you're doing something silly. And it's the soft, snuggly feeling of being all wrapped up, cozy in your bed at night. Even when you are caught in the rain and your joy is washed away, it's waiting at the bottom of the puddle. Even if you slam the door and your joy can't get in, it's just on the other side, waiting in a loving hug. And even if there is a loud noise in the night and your joy gets scared away, it comes streaming right back with the light of the silvery moon. We discovered that the more joy we shared, the more joy we had. And the more joy we had, the more joy we could share. So look for the joy all around you and share it. Write it in a letter. Play it on a drum. Sing it to the sky. It will travel up in the air, across the ocean. Someone will find it and share it. And as it spreads from person to person, the world will fill with joy.
This is the time when we have our morning offering to support the work of this free fellowship and also to support the work of community ministries. This month, part of the offering will go to Ripple of One, which is a community organization in Oconee County. And I see that we have some people who are young at heart that are filling in for the children. We appreciate you gathering the weekly food offering.
This is a time that we share our joys and concerns. It is a sacred sharing, a reminder of our connection to community and the knowledge that we are not alone. I've asked Holly to place a stone in this vessel which represents this community for each joy and concern that is shared. So I am going to start with our concern today from Mike Cole. This Thursday, June 20th, the Pickens County Friends of the Library will meet at 6 p.m. at the Easley Library, Hampton branch, with an issue related to censorship, which will come up. And have a joy from Holly Ulbrich. It is after a long weekend in New Jersey with her daughter, Carla, son-in-law Joe, and the eldest grandchild Abby from Aiken for Broadway show and in Atlantic City. Even with glasses, I still have trouble reading sometimes.
I got season 10 and
Yes. And I guess that's a joy for me, is that I now know that reading is a little bit easier with reading glasses, but if I look up at you guys, y'all are a little bit fuzzy with reading glasses on, so this is gonna be weird. A little bit of getting used to. There is a joy of Phantom in the parking lot. Cody Moss won the musical chairs contest at Friday's Square Dance at Oconee State Park. Yes, here we go. Wonderful. Yes. All right. And we place one final stone in the vessel representing all of the joys and concerns that remain quiet and tender upon our hearts this morning. Thank you. And I suppose since we don't have any young children in the service, that we can skip Go Now in Peace for this Sunday. All right. So we'll just have to skip over those slides in a minute. All right. So I'd like to invite you to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation in recognition of this Father's Day. On this Father's Day, we recognize the vast spectrum of experience and often complicated feelings that surround such a celebration. We honor those fathers and father figures in our lives who have loved and supported, encouraged and instructed us. And we seek to share these gifts with others. We mourn with those who mourn the loss of father, or fathers who mourn the loss of a child. Whether separated by death or estrangement, we support those for whom this day brings pain and sorrow, who suffered abandonment, neglect, or abuse. We support and celebrate the fathers in our midst who give of themselves to their children, recognizing all of the strength and wisdom and stamina and love and time and honest introspection that fatherhood requires. We support those men who choose not to have children, yet who are present in loving and supportive ways to children, youth, and adults alike. And we seek to honor wherever we find ourselves today across the vast spectrum of experience, and to feel the compassion that embraces us within this silence. And we'll have that silence alongside a little bit of meditation music.
An excerpt from the Book of Joy by His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu with the assistance of Douglas Abrams. According to Paul Ekman, famed emotions researcher and longtime friend of the Dalai Lama, has written that joy is associated with feelings as varied as pleasure of the five senses, amusement from a chuckle or a belly laugh, contentment, a calmer kind of satisfaction, excitement in response to novelty or challenge, relief following upon another emotion such as fear, anxiety, and even pleasure, wonder before something astonishing and admirable, ecstasy or bliss, transporting us outside ourselves, exultation at having accomplished a difficult or daring task, radiant pride when our children earn a special honor, unhealthy jubilation, relishing in someone else's suffering. Elevation from having witnessed an act of kindness, generosity, or compassion. Gratitude, the appreciation of a selfless act of which one is the beneficiary. Matthew Ricard added 3 other more exalted states of joy: rejoicing in someone else's happiness, delight or enchantment, a shining kind of commitment, spiritual radiance, a serene joy born from the deep well-being and benevolence. Joy certainly does embrace all of these human experiences, but lasting joy, joy as a way of being, that one witnesses in the Archbishop and the Dalai Lama, is probably closest to the shining contentment or spiritual radiance born of deep well-being and benevolence. And our musical interlude will be This Joy by the Resistance Rival Chorus.
This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that? This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it, the world can't take it away. Oh, this strength that I have, this strength that I have. This strength that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. World didn't give it to me. This strength that I have. Oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This strength that I have. Oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. Oh, this love that I have. This love that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This love that I have. Oh, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that? This love that I have, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. Singing, the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. Oh, this pride that I have, this pride that I have. This pride that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This pride that I have. I said the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that? This pride that I have, yeah. The world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. All this peace that I have. The world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give me my peace that I have. Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. Won't you sing about this peace that I have? Oh, yeah, now. The world didn't give it to me. I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. All this joy that I have, this joy that I have. This joy that I have. Oh, yeah, now, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it to me. This joy that I have. I said the world didn't give it to me. Don't you know that? This joy that I have. The world didn't give it to me. Oh, I said the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it. The world can't take it away. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it away. The world didn't give it. The world can't take it away.
Resistance Revival Chorus believes in the words written by the poet Toy Derricott when she wrote, "Joy is an act of resistance." We believe in the words of Mr. Harry Belafonte, who said, "When the movement is strong, the music is strong." We sing to revive the hearts of those who fight for social justice, and we sing together for freedom.
I don't know sign language, but I do know one good sign, and I understand some people have difficulty hearing me, and the sign is, and then I'll try to speak more loudly and more slowly. Where is it? I sent it to you.
Okay. Hold on.
I'm not sure I can do it from memory.
All right. Can you read it on this?
Yeah, I can read that fine. Okay. This week is the Celtic holiday of Litha, the summer solstice, when the sun god is at the height of his powers and the mother goddess is ripe with child. The festival of first harvest is still 6 away because these are Northern European understandings of the seasons, and they aren't harvesting much yet. Here we're enjoying blackberries and blueberries, watermelon, and corn. So for us, Lammas, the 1st of August, is the second harvest. All the Celtic holidays are occasions for joy, for singing and dancing and enjoying the unique gifts of each season in community. So today, since I'm descended from lots of Celts on my mother's side, I want to celebrate 2 sources of Litha joy for me. My communities, especially communities of family and close friends, and my little garden with its lantana and larkspur, blackberries and zucchini. My mother loved to garden. My sister developed new daylily hybrids. My brother owned a farm in Vermont where he raised cows and Christmas trees. My grandfather had an apple orchard, and various relatives had dairy farms. I do not aspire to their breadth and depth as farmers, but my birth family nurtured a fondness for gardening. I am the last survivor of that family. I carry a love of plants and a joy to see them prosper, not just as a family heritage, but as a source of joy and solidarity with family and with earth. My friends are a different source of joy, much of it in conversation interspersed with adventures like walking on the Atlantic City Boardwalk and seeing a Broadway musical last weekend with my middle daughter, her husband, and my oldest granddaughter. Some of these conversations are deep, especially those with my oldest son-in-law and my youngest granddaughter. Others are light, funny, joyful, sad, affirming, challenging. Reflecting on the joy of family and friends and the joy of making, or at least abetting, the growth of plants, I find these 2 joys joined together in a charming poem by retired Unitarian Universalist minister Max Kutz. He calls it A Harvest of People. Let us give thanks for a bounty of people, for children who are our second planting, and though they grow like weeds and the wind too soon blows them away, may they forgive us our cultivation and remember fondly where their roots are. Let us give thanks for generous friends with hearts as big as Hubbard's and smiles as bright as their blossoms, for feisty friends as tart as apples, for continuous friends who, like scallions and cucumbers, keep reminding us that we've had them, for crotchety friends as sour as rhubarb and as indestructible, for handsome friends who are as gorgeous as eggplants and as elegant as a row of corn, and others as plain as potatoes and as good for you, for funny friends who are as silly as Brussels sprouts and as amusing as Jerusalem artichokes, and serious friends as complex as cauliflowers and as intricate as onions, for friends as unpretentious as cabbages, as subtle as summer squash, as persistent as parsley, as delightful as dill, and as endless as zucchini, and who, like parsnips, can be counted on to see you through the winter. For old friends nodding like sunflowers in the evening time, and young friends coming on as fast as radishes, for loving friends who wind around us like tendrils and hold us, despite our blights, wilts, and witherings. And finally, for those friends now gone, like gardens past that have been harvested, but who fed us in times that we might have life thereafter. For all these we give thanks.
Thanks for rolling with it for our technical challenges. I missed printing something out. All right. So, you might have noticed that a lot about this service has to do with the Book of Joy from His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So a few years ago, my uncle gifted me this book while I was in seminary, and as you might imagine, while I was in seminary, I had quite a lot of reading to do. And sorry, I can't do this and look at you guys. It's just too much. I have large print on my tablet. So I put it aside, but I left it in my collection and moved it with me, and then the pandemic hit. And in the midst of the pandemic, I had a lot more free time. And I was feeling pretty down. Anybody else feel that way during isolation, early stages of the pandemic? Yeah. So I decided that I could read this book about joy. Even if I didn't feel very joyful at the moment, it couldn't hurt, right? So it helped me find some joy in the midst of sadness. Maybe it just helped me recognize the joy that was already there, but that it was so hard to see in the midst of everything that was going on in the world. And so these are words from the Archbishop, quote, "Joy is much bigger than happiness, while happiness is often seen as being dependent on external circumstances. Joy is not," end quote. So this was a bit different than what I had thought of before, and perhaps you as well, because so often happiness and joy are part of one another's definitions or in the list of synonyms, one for the other. But this really made me think more deeply, and I hope and invite you to think a little bit differently about how we consider joy and whether it is there, or whether we recognize its presence within us. Because let's face it, there is so much that we cannot control in this world. We can control ourselves to a certain degree, but sometimes our bodies or our minds don't cooperate with how we wish they would, whether it's wearing reading glasses and trying to get used to that, or I know during the pandemic really affected my mental health and so many others. Things that are beyond our control in the world around us have the ability to disrupt our ability to see that joy. But when you think about that whole list that Holly read a little while ago of joy, there are all of these vast, different understandings of joy. As you consider the Archbishop's words, joy is bigger and more difficult to disrupt because it is innate within us as human beings. The excerpt that Holly read, listing all of those types of joy, there were two things that really struck me about that list. One was the listing of unhealthy jubilation, relishing in someone else's suffering. At first, this was startling because it's difficult to conceive for me to find joy in the suffering of others. However, that's not to say that such a thing does not happen. And some of the stuff that happens in the world is evidence of that. Receiving some kind of pleasure or excitement in harming others. And so the juxtaposition of that was the one that stood out to me and want to talk a little bit more about today is spiritual radiance. A serene joy born from deep well-being and benevolence. It seemed to be kind of a culmination of all of those other types of joy that were listed, except for the unhealthy jubilation, which didn't seem to fit. But so, I have a question for you, and I was thinking that things earlier in the service might take a little bit longer, but Ramy kindly put a couple of mics out. Karen, could I ask you to help me with one of the mics to let some of you answer a question for me? Are there things in your life that bring you joy, especially the spiritual radiance, the sense of deep well-being? What might that look like or feel like for you? All right. Oh, let's see. Yep. No.
The flowers in the garden as they continue to bloom despite the heat and lack of rain. And indeed, particularly the butterfly bushes that attract bees as well as butterflies and moths.
Thank you.
I feel joy.
Yep.
When my little kitty cat, Catalina, or cat for short, jumps on my lap and purrs and cuddles up and looks at me to see if I'm busy and paying attention or not. But then when I am paying attention, she turns around a couple times and cuddles up in her sleeping position, and we make love to each other. In a way. That's one of many joys in my life.
Thank you.
This community is a joy in my life too.
Yes. Thank you.
And following that, those of us who go to a dog park and just watching the dogs that are having fun together and don't think, and the dogs aren't thinking about what's going on in the world. They're able in the moment to have fun. And also getting to talk to other fellow dog lovers.
Thank you. Okay. Well,
When I was a child, my mother would take us picking blackberries, my brother and me. We never got many in the bucket, but we ate a lot of them. And even today, it is my joy to go out in the morning, in the early morning, to my little blackberry patch in my yard and just pick a dozen ripe blackberries and eat them.
What brings me joy is the laughter of children. I love children. And also when I sit and talk to Yogananda and look at his pictures, which I have several in my home.
thank you.
Can't let it go without saying that my joy is absolutely every Sunday morning getting to spend time with my kids in the back there and listening to their brains and just relishing in what comes out of their mouth.
Yes.
Well, I would say that joy is being the father of 3 wonderful daughters and 7 wonderful grandchildren.
Thank you.
many years ago, one of my grandsons was sitting at the breakfast table with my daughter and I was saying that I had these chores to do, and one of them was to reorganize the linen closet downstairs. I no sooner got that word out of my mouth, and my little grandson says, "I love that place." And we kind of looked at him like, "What?" Well, I realized what he was referring to is there was a whole bunch of pillows in there, and he loved to go in and dive on those pillows. And that spontaneity, that joy just tickled me, and I reflect on it forever.
Yeah. You have Bing.
Nancy and I are manufacturers long past retirement. And the joy that I have, and the reason we haven't retired, is I enjoy making things.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing some of the things that bring you joy. And I have to say, there were a few things that came to mind as some of you were speaking. I love the laughter of babies. It is one of the things that gives me the most joy. And there's a photo of me as a little kid at my grandparents' house, sleeping in the closet on a pile of pillows. So apparently this is a thing. And as you said it, I was like, oh yeah. And that memory of being at my grandparents' house like that is a dear one. So, as we took a moment to lift up some of those joys that we hold dear, I hope that it can help remind you to celebrate the joys when they happen, or to reflect back on the things that bring you joy, whether you named them aloud here in this space, or if you continue to think about them as you go throughout the rest of your day. Sometimes we find joy with sharing a meal with friends or family or strangers. I had the delight of being invited to a dinner at a congregant's house earlier this week and had delightful conversation and wonderful food as well. That brought me joy. Also, having access to treatment for illness and injury. And I don't want to make this all about me, but I get to have surgery later this month to help for a pinched nerve, and I'm excited about having access to treatment to help with such things. There are sometimes some more basic things that we have access to that we need to find and celebrate joy in. Something as basic as having housing with heating or cooling in these unpredictable temperatures that we are having, with the warmest year on record this past year, and possibly meeting or exceeding that again this year. Access to something as simple as food or water. Maybe it's sharing a kindness with someone, whether they're a friend or a stranger, whether it is a small word or action, something as simple as holding the door for someone else. These are a form of joy connected to that sense of benevolence, helping others, whether that is donating or volunteering in some way to an organization that means something to you. The video that we watched a little while ago named this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me, and the world can't take it away. It's followed by this strength, this love, this peace, but especially in thinking about this joy in the book of joy and this list of different types of joy, I thought this joy that the Dalai Lama and Archbishop were speaking of isn't something that the world can take away, even if it distracts us, even if it keeps us from being able to see it at times. It can't completely take the joy away if we think about joy as expansive as that list is. It can seem overwhelming at times when we have lots of emotions that we are dealing with, when we are seeing the news, when we are seeing the war and violence that is happening in the world. Who here heard the statement at some point in your life, when it comes to what's reported in the news, that if it bleeds, it leads? And sadly, that has been too often the case. We rarely get to see these moments of joy being lifted up. When a Good Samaritan does something that is beneficial to the community, it is much less likely to be acknowledged publicly. And I may have mentioned this to some of you, maybe even a service here before, but several years ago, I came across a TED Talk. Anybody familiar with or ever watched TED Talks? Okay. So this one said that you can retrain your brain. And the instruction that was given was that you can retrain your brain by taking time each day to reflect on, maybe write down, 3 things that you are grateful for, that you found meaning in that day, perhaps found joy in on that day. And I found it to be helpful exercise when I tried it out, although I don't do it all the time, but it can be helpful for us to recognize that joy when it arises, that gratitude for what is available to us in the world. And there is something to be said when we have sadness or grief, whether we're struggling with stress or anxiety. If we focus on all that is wrong, it is hard to see the things that do bring us moments of joy. It's easy to get pulled down. When talking about depression, that kind of spiral, once it starts, it can just continue. But if we can disrupt it, sometimes that's easier than others. Not to say that it's an easy task to do, but it can be a worthy one. If we recognize the signs early in that spiral, perhaps we can reach out rather than isolating ourselves, which was hard during the pandemic, of course. So sometimes having those things, recognizing that joy, is something that can help renew our spirit, help us reconnect, help us find grounding in the world around us. And so within this faith, within Unitarian Universalism, there are some principles, some sources, some covenants that we say are the thing that helps ground us, helps us find a sense, I hope, of some spiritual radiance, a deep well-being. And we're not perfect, unless you count perfectly imperfect. We don't always do the best job of living into it, but if we can live into it, maybe we can find that sense of spiritual radiance. Whether it is our 7th principle that recognizes how interconnected we are with the words that say the respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, And I feel the need to emphasize this every time I say it aloud. It's not a part, like separate from. It is a part of something larger than ourselves. And when I think about this spiritual radiance, this well-being, also our first principle, as it states that we recognize the inherent worth and dignity in all people. That benevolence, recognizing and hoping to help bring into reality these things. And the Dalai Lama said, quote, "Too much self-centered thinking is the source of suffering. A compassionate concern of others' well-being is a source of happiness," end quote. So one of the things that can get us into trouble in the world is when we are so focused on ourselves that we don't have those connections to the community around us, when we don't have those connections that can help remind us of whether it is our faith, whether it is the joy that is there to be seen and experienced in the world. And to be clear, I don't mean that we should ignore our own needs, because you cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot serve others. You cannot help provide energy to others in the world if your battery is drained. If you aren't taking care of yourself physically, mentally, and spiritually, there's not much to give beyond that. But if we recognize that sometimes we need help, who here finds it easy to ask for help? Okay, so I'm not alone. It can be challenging, right? It's easy to offer support or help to somebody else, but when it comes time to say, I too need support, I too need some help, it's a whole lot harder to do. It's a whole lot harder to accept. But remember that if there are moments that you find joy in helping others, they too might find joy in helping you. And it can be reciprocal rather than one-sided. I read a story a while back of someone that celebrated, and I mean threw an enormous party every year on the anniversary of her cancer diagnosis, because the doctor told her that she would not live the rest of the year, that she didn't have that long to live. And when she proved them wrong for a few years, she decided that she was going to throw a party. And it happened to correspond closely with Mardi Gras, so there were Mardi Gras beads and fancy hats and maybe some fascinators or fancy hats like we have with some folks here today. I heard there was a tea party, and maybe that brought some joy as well. But sometimes people celebrate the ends of relationships. Sometimes we celebrate the relationships that we are able to continue to have, refusing to let the world steal the joy that we can find. I also want to lift up briefly, before I come to an end, that there's also celebrations in response to resistance. Joy as resistance, as the end of the video noted, is important, which is part of the reason why we celebrate Pride, which I talked a lot about last week, but also coming up this week is Juneteenth. It was not until 2021 that Juneteenth was made a national holiday, which represents the date, that the Emancipation Proclamation abolishing slavery was read in Galveston, Texas in 1865. So this has been a celebration amongst the descendants of enslaved people and the Black community in the generations since then, even before it was recognized as a national holiday. We all manage joy and difficulties in different ways. The Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, "Discovering more joy does not, I'm sorry to say, save us from the inevitability of hardship and heartbreak. In fact, we may cry more easily, but we will laugh more easily too. Perhaps we are just more alive. Yet, as we discover more joy, we can face suffering in a way that ennobles rather than embitters. We can have hardship without becoming hard. We can have heartbreak without being broken," end quote. May we find relief, some hope in the knowledge that we are not alone, even when we feel as though we are, that we are connected to something larger, be that family, community, church, or in your case, a fellowship, or the planet as a whole, that interdependent web that connects us all. May we find that through those connections, the innate joy that we can carry with us, that we can make it through the most difficult of times. May we hold fast to joy so that it may sustain us, that it offers the opportunity to feel more deeply of what life has to offer. May we be renewed by it. May it be so, may we make it so, and blessed be. You are now invited to rise in spirit or body, wherever you are, to join in singing our closing hymn, number 29, Joyful, Joyful, We Adore Thee. And I know this is a little bit different than what we sing on a regular Sunday, but it's joyful, so please. May you find joy and renewal in this day, in this weeks ahead, in the company that you find here in this congregation and in the wider world. Go in peace and return in love until we are together again.